All right, guys, good afternoon. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Thursday, May 14th, one day before the 15th of the month. Almost half the month is over already. Unbelievable how quick this goes that we're going through the month of May already. This is your end of day recap. Of course, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Pretty crazy day, all in all. You could see from the left of your screen, the spreadsheet. I mean, this was a pretty powerful bounce that we had. And look at the names that did the heavy lifting today. A little bit different. The banks, right? So this is the group that nobody wants to own, including myself. Everybody on all you have to do is basically spend just a few minutes on Twitter the last couple days. No, everybody talking about all these banks, they've broken down, they look ugly, which is all true. But you could kind of use this a little bit to your advantage because the sentiment has gotten so bad in the banks. It's finally, I think people have kind of really thrown in the towel. Some of the people that were kind of trying to, find some deep value in the banks and so forth, really when that gets washed out, it can provide a little bit of trading opportunities for you. Again, for bouncing, for bounce opportunities. I don't think that the trend has changed or anything like that with the banks. But if you don't have to basically guess. What we kind of saw today was we kind of caught it, right? We were watching Wells Fargo. The market's getting crushed, and Wells Fargo's going up. Same thing. We were kind of all over the J.P. Morgan as well. So I think some traders made some nice money in the room today, just basically on that too. When you see something like that, it's kind of a combination of things. The sentiment is washed out. Also, we've talked about how unloved value is versus growth. So the situation with this stuff is, in my opinion, is that this stuff doesn't go up or down in a straight line. There's going to be times, there's going to be edges where you can basically, find where the sediment has just gone all the way to one side of the boat. Versus the other. So I started trading. I'll kind of show you, kind of bring you along to what I was doing today. One of the things that I saw originally. I don't know why this screen is flashing. Let me try this again. Sometimes Slack does this on this screen. I don't know why. Let me go back to here. Um, I'll get away from this in just a second. But my watch list, right? I try to provide a watch list just about every day. And my watch list in the morning was Visa, MasterCard, Netflix, ServiceNow, and a couple other names. Let me get out of this because I don't know why the screen is flashing like this. But so I started trading Netflix because Netflix looks like it had a chance to possibly break out. It's still in value. We didn't get over it. We did see some, and it's funny because we set this up pre-market, and there was some calls that came in, like some, the momentum calls that come into the market. They kind of attacked Netflix off of the first 5 minute bar, but it really got no follow through through the day, and it actually ended up after the first 15 minutes, it fizzled. And basically, what I did, I started to see more of the value names, catching momentum. So I basically, oh, see, oh, there it goes. It's starting to. I just jinxed it. I was going to say it's not flashing anymore. Uh, it's got to be something that's conflicting over here. But you could see I got into Netflix, and then basically I sold it. The reason why I did that, and I also was in Peloton too, and which was a small trade, but I wanted to participate. But I got out of Netflix at 441, paid 445 because I just saw that there was other opportunities that were going on in the market. So the reason why I show this because nobody shows losers and how to manage losers. And it's an important aspect of trading. If you're trading every day, like if you're an active trader, maybe doing some swing trading as well as day trading, which is basically what I'm doing, you have to be able to kind of say, okay, this trade's not going to work out. Let me clean the slate a little bit and focus on names that I think have more of an opportunity. I don't know why this screen is doing this all of a sudden. This is new. Um, but nevertheless, it helps me a lot. The reason why is because I'm doing a lot of different things, right? And I want to catch the next opportunity. And sometimes if you are fixated on one stock or two stocks and they're not moving the right way, you tend to have tunnel vision, right? And you miss the next opportunity that's on the tape. So the next move that we started to see was a lot of the credit card companies that started to move. And again, like AXP is something different, right? Look at what AXP did today. The thing crushed it. So again, moving in and out of things where things aren't working, it's okay to take a loss. Again, small losses are absolutely fine. You just don't want big losses. The other aspect, again, that people that you don't hear a lot is it just moves. It opens up your attention span, right? Our brains are only, at least my brain anyway, can only handle so much. So if I'm watching a couple names that aren't, if I'm really like stressing and watching over a name, I miss the AXP, which we caught in the room today too. This was pretty nice too because we also caught this one before that there was option activity, and certainly there was a little bit of option activity in this one as well today. So, but very interesting to see some other participation. And again, to kind of be a little bit open-minded, but you got a nice bullish engulfing there. I also was looking at, I traded Mastercard as well, which was kind of a tricky of a trade today. It just didn't go straight up. It had to be kind of managed a little bit today. Visa also did fine. I mean, look at so this goes into, someone asked me on Twitter. They said, "How do you catch all these things?" I do a lot of research after hours. I've got few names that I return to from time and time again, but I like to go after quality names on dips. People always get a little bit worried when the market sells off a little bit, and they forget that there are quality setups that everybody's been waiting to get into on a dip. When you get the dip, no one wants to do anything. So it helps to kind of say, okay, this is the name, these are the names that I want to get into, and to kind of have that plan, and then to have the support, a support level where it's, where if it doesn't work out, if the market tends to go lower, you basically what to do. I'm going to close this Bloomberg. I think this is what's killing my screen here, so let's try that, and I'll maximize this. So I think that solve the issue there in the short term. But I want to talk about the S&P levels. I think those were crucial for the day as well. And again, the indicator that I have on my screen, it's called the market webs. You hear me refer to it a lot on Twitter as well as in the room. It just really gives me a sense of, it gives me I call it a roadmap and a plan for what I want to be doing, and where I know if I've got positions on, and I know where they're not going to work out and where I have to basically throw in the towel, right? Because no one wants to get caught in, right? So I was talking to somebody and they mentioned, well, this is probably a pretty decent dip in the market, considering, where we are and where we've come from. But I don't, the problem is when we have like this, right? You could have said, well, this was a good dip, or this was a good dip, or this was a good dip, right? So you have to have a level that you're trading against, in my opinion. That's how I do it, because you just don't know when you're going to be wrong, right? So instincts are important, but you have to have some type of level and a plan to basically know when you're wrong. Again, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. The problem is staying wrong, right? Everybody's going to be wrong from time to time. Paul Tudor Jones talks about that a lot. He assumes, I believe it's Paul Tudor Jones. If I'm misquoting, please let me know. But whatever positions he has on, he assumes that they're wrong. It's a great way to like mentally think about things, so that you don't get like a big ego and have to say, oh my gosh, I don't want to admit that I'm wrong. So anyway, let me go through again. I like to provide a little bit of context in trading. It's important. So the big level that I was talking about over the last couple of days was this bottom of value on the weekly, which is 2808, Right, that was one of the lines in sand for me. I spent, if you watched last night's video, I talked about how 2774 is really where I kind of change my tune, where I change my stance. Well, we're holding that for now, and basically we got a really nice bounce today. And notice this is sometimes how it works. We violate a level for a couple hours, and then we come right back. So I thought that was nice. We had a really nice bullish engulfing candle. Now, if we bring this to a step forward, and again, the valuers also give me a sense of where I want to be adding risk versus where I don't. That can kind of make or break, whether or not you're having a positive day or a negative day. This was the other thing that I tweeted out. We made this nice move starting at 1020. We had a little bit of a check back to the bond value, and that got a little bit suspect there around 1140 this morning. But we held value perfectly. We made it all the way through, and it's tough because you're starting to see call buying and so forth all at the wrong time. And you have to know that you've got a level of resistance for the whole market up here. So we tagged this thing and we sold off. So if you were adding here, you had to work through a little bit of pain. But again, noticing, where we had this, and again, this is all things that we went over in the trading room today. Actually, someone else in the room pointed out and said, hey, we just tagged top of value. So you have to kind of like sit tight when we do that. And then kind of wait for it to actually happen. But, if you wanted to add a little bit into here, back into the check back to this point of control, it's perfectly perfect. By the way, look at how the value area is the same for yesterday versus the same as today. That's pretty interesting. Sometimes that does happen. And then finally, once we broke value, we went. There was also this story on the semiconductors that got the semiconductors going. Taiwan Semiconductor announced that they're going to be building a plant, I guess, or a factory or something in Arizona. Interesting. Somebody bought calls. Now, again, I will always tell you what I think in terms of this stuff, but somebody bought calls in Lam Research right here on the break of value. Now, they didn't do it in here, right? Then I would think that they would know that they know something, right? If they were buying calls like in here, in Lam Research, I would say, okay, maybe they were privy to something. But they actually, if you look at the timestamp of the order, right, what did they buy here? If we go into our, oh, no, still doing this. Blink, this, something must be conflicting in my system. But if you look at this Lam Research order, again, I don't know why this is happening. Next week's calls they bought, and they bought those right at 1450. So 1450 is right here. So they were actually a little bit late. So it kind of goes back to what I say, that most of the flow that we see, something like that, it's a momentum play. Somebody's got a computer generated, they've got a very fast system, and they're picking up on volume and momentum. They don't know anything. They're basically saying, hey, this is a good shot. Something different is going on here. And they buy next week's calls. That's all it is. It's not anything more intelligent than that. They're thinking that somebody knows something. Those are the majority of orders that we see on the tape. I know it's different from what other people try to program you into thinking that they know something, that it's the smart money. It's guys just with a very fast computer model and an algorithm that's picking up volume and a break out of a range. So that's what we try to do as well, with our value area system, is we're looking for the same types of signals, which you can all pre-program on your end too by just placing alerts. It's basically all it is. It takes about half hour to an hour every night on your watch list or names that you think are interesting, that are setting up. You could scan through names and so on and so forth. I played the NVIDIA today on the break of the value because I did see this. I did see the notice that we got to that VPOC, but I played this first 5-minute bar because I had an alert set on this one. I did not have an alert set on Lam Research. I did see that order and I thought, oh, that's interesting, that order in Lam Research. I did not take that order today. So here's my trade blotter. I also traded McDonald's. McDonald's had a hell of a day today too. And I got out of an order that we saw a lot of calls on, of an ATVI yesterday. Maybe they are going to be right. I just saw better opportunities out there. Where did this thing finish for the day? So it basically did nothing. May do something tomorrow, but again, it frees my mind up of getting out of a position that I got into yesterday, so I can concentrate on the McDonald's, right? The AMD as well, which did pretty well. So that's a little bit of the technique that we used. The service now, which did okay. It didn't get to my target up here, which may get there tomorrow. I kind of traded around this a little bit. I took a target and then I added back on the check back to bottom of value support and was able to kind of force the target there at the end of the day. All right, so here is my target, $17. All right, and there's my MasterCard as well. So anyway, there's my trade blotter. I always show it to you guys. So I'll kind of leave this video here for the night. So where does this kind of take us for tomorrow? Was this just an oversold? Sorry, not oversold, but was this just a sentiment bounce where everybody seemed to be getting negative? Right? They had Tepper on. They had who else? Druckenmiller the other day. Stanley Druckenmiller. Talk about he's not buying anything and really kind of spooked the market a little bit. So I think for now, you kind of take it for what it is, right? I don't have a crystal ball. Do I think it's positive that we bounce like this for the day? I do. It's no doubt it's a positive. And I think we've got some room. This 2808 is going to be the support, and perhaps we could get all the way through to the top of value, which is 28.95. So I'm positioned a little bit for that. Am I crazy, bullish right now? No, but I've got a couple plays on to see if we have some continuation into tomorrow. Tomorrow's the 15th of the month. Sometimes there's new money being put to work on the 15th of the month. Not always. It's typically the first of the month, but sometimes you also see some money being put in the middle of the month too. So maybe we get that for tomorrow. We'll see. But I think for the most part, everybody is always trying to predict, okay, so now we're going to get going to the upside, or now we're going to get going to the downside. Sometimes we just chop around too, right? And that's the beauty of option flow and so forth, is you could see what they're buying and see if they're rotating into different names like they did in financials today. So there was a lot of option flow in things like Wells Fargo and Bank of America and a couple other financials today too. So again, I think that's just basically a short-term rotation. Short-term, change in momentum, and that's how I play that kind of stuff. Which brings me to a good point. In the last point of this video, I thought this was really interesting, this Robinhood stuff, right? Which is a lot of newer retail traders. I know everybody's kind of making fun of the Robinhood traders. These are the top 5 Robinhood holdings by user: Ford, GE, Disney, American Airlines, and Delta Airlines. This blows my mind because I've tried to, when I have newer traders that come into the room and they'll ask me about these stocks from time to time. Now, you can invest in these names. It's not my style, but as long as you're investing the right way. Again, I'm always a trend trader. I stick with the trend. I like to buy names that are showing relative strength, not relative weakness, and follow the trend for as long as they're going to last. Just because a stock goes down, because I've asked people, I said, well, why are you interested in these names? Because I've had traders who ask me about the airlines, or they ask me about, Wells Fargo or one of the banks. And I ask, I say, well, what's your reason for buying it? Well, because it's down a lot. That's not a reason to buy. That is not, just because a stock is down is not a reason to buy. Names can be in downtrends for long, long times. It's telling you something. If a name is down, you're not going to outsmart this. They are down for a reason. And a lot of times they will continue to go lower. Now, if you want to take a small shot in something, what we call a flyer or a lotto, you can do that in a delta, right? So if your average trade size is $10,000, you could put $500 on, right? So like a very small percent, like a tiny amount, right? And that's called a flyer. But please, if you don't know anything about this, that's part of what being a member of Tribeca Trade Group is. You learn to stick with the trend and stick with winners, not with names that are going to be 2-3 year projects to get out of. And again, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with those names. Maybe they do rally once the country opens a little bit, but it's going to be a tough battle, right? So there's a very big difference between an Amazon or Microsoft that has been going up for years versus you trying to pick the bottom, the absolute bottom in that. So I'm here. I'm here to help. Instead of doing things like that, again, it does blow my mind. I understand why it happens. The top five holdings of new Robinhood traders, which I believe are newer traders. But you have to learn. Everybody learns and makes mistakes of buying stocks just because they're down. It takes a little bit of experience to learn that that's not the way to do things. And again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving you any advice. I don't know what these stocks are going to do long term, but there's just so many better opportunities, in my opinion, than doing stuff like that. All right, guys, have a great night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.